Inauguration of Joe Biden. Mr. Trump had earlier promised to ensure a smooth and orderly transition of power. It's as Democrats say they plan to move forward with articles of impeachment. A police officer is the fifth person to die from the violence on Capitol Hill. A murder investigation has been launched into his death. Police say that Brian Sicknick was injured while physically engaging with protesters. The UK records its highest daily death toll since the pandemic began, more than 1,300 deaths reported today, and a major incident has been declared in London as hospitals across the UK struggle to cope. The Moderna vaccine has been approved for use in the UK. It's the third vaccine to get the green light, and 17 million doses have been ordered.
World leaders and allies have expressed shock over Wednesday's violence in Washington, D.C., where rioters supporting President Donald Trump attacked the U.S. Capitol building. President Trump says there will be an orderly transition of power after Congress approved Electoral College votes for President-elect Joe Biden early Thursday. A group of military officers enter Ghana's parliament after an apparent dispute between the ruling and opposition parties. Lawmakers are to be sworn in Thursday. And Japan declares a state of emergency for Tokyo and 3 nearby areas to control rising coronavirus cases.
President Trump directly condemned the violence caused by a mob of his supporters who stormed the Capitol on Wednesday. Trump, in a video statement, also acknowledged his election loss and said he would leave office peacefully on January 20th. Capitol Police last night said an officer died from injuries sustained while responding to Wednesday's attack. Several law enforcement agencies are investigating the officer's death. Capitol Police said other officers have been hospitalized. Top congressional Democrats called for Trump to be removed from office. Several top administration officials resigned, including 2 cabinet members, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao. Companies including Facebook and publisher Simon & Schuster moved to cut ties with Trump and his supporters. Some employers said they fired workers who participated in the riot at the Capitol after seeing them in photos and videos posted to social media. Hyundai offered rare public confirmation of Apple's car-related efforts. The South Korean automaker's shares rose sharply after it said it has held preliminary talks with the iPhone maker about cooperating on driverless electric vehicles. Apple declined to comment. Markets in Asia ended higher outside mainland China, and European stocks rose in early trading. And in the U.S., it's Jobs Friday. Investors will be closely monitoring December employment numbers due out this morning. We have a lot more coverage of the day's news on the
We begin here in Japan, where officials confirmed more than 7,800 new coronavirus cases on Friday, a record high for the 4th day in a row. It comes on the same day a month-long state of emergency took effect for the Tokyo area. 78 deaths of infected people were reported across the country on Friday. That figure is also a record high for one day. The state of emergency applies to Tokyo, Chiba, Saitama, and Kanagawa prefectures. Daily tallies from the area account for about half of the national total. Companies are being asked to reduce the number of staff at their offices by encouraging remote work.
The trains were pretty crowded. I want to avoid them as much as possible.
There are still too many people. They won't switch to working from home unless authorities make a stronger request.
Bars and restaurants are being asked to close by 8 p.m., and residents are being urged to avoid non-essential outings after that time.
We're usually full after 8 with reserved guests.
But some establishments say they will remain open after 8 and forego subsidies.
If we closed earlier, that would affect all the shops we get our food from. It would also have an impact on sake brewers. That would ruin our business circle. And I want to avoid that.
Central government officials and experts are trying to figure out how to ensure businesses shorten their operating hours. One option being considered is a legal revision that would allow the government to punish businesses that don't comply with the request. The surge in infections is straining the medical system. 826 people are now in serious condition across Japan. That's the highest to date. Tokyo no longer has any hospital beds available for COVID-19 patients who also require dialysis.
It's possible that some people will die at home. We want to avoid that at any cost.
The governors of Osaka, Hyogo, and Kyoto prefectures plan to ask the central government to include their area in the state of emergency. Several other prefectures are also considering making a similar request. With the capital now under a state of emergency, the longest-serving member of the International Olympic Committee has expressed a personal view that there is no guarantee the Tokyo Games will go ahead. The BBC reported on Thursday that Canadian IOC member Dick Pound said the elephant in the room would be surges in the virus. Pound also suggested that competitors should be high on the list to get vaccinated. He said the organizers could make it a requirement for athletes to declare they've received the shots before entering Japan. Pound was also quick to raise questions early in the pandemic last year about whether the Games would go ahead as scheduled. Even as Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide declared a state of emergency, he said he's determined to hold a safe and secure Summer Games. IOC President Thomas Bach has also said he expects the event to go ahead as scheduled. The Australian government is tightening restrictions on international arrivals after a case of a variant of the coronavirus was confirmed in the city of Brisbane. The variant was first found in Britain. The city is entering a 3-day lockdown.
From 6 p.m. tonight, Friday, to 6 p.m. Monday, all residents living in those areas will be required to stay at home. Think of it as a long weekend at home.
Residents will only be allowed to go out for essential activities such as shopping for daily necessities. This is the first time the variant has been detected in a person not coming from abroad. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has expressed a sense of crisis. The central government now requires travelers from abroad to show a negative test result before boarding a plane to Australia. It also said international passenger caps in 3 states will be temporarily halved. In the past few months, the daily tally of coronavirus cases has been low, varying from 10 to 30. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian countries are actively working to procure and use vaccines. In Singapore, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong received his first shot on Friday. Lee urged people in the country to take the vaccine in order to bring the pandemic under control. Singapore is using a vaccine developed by U.S. pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and Germany's BioNTech. In Laos, where the number of infections stands at 41, the government said it vaccinated about 100 people, including medical workers, in November and December. It added there have been no side effects. The vaccinations began after Chinese drug maker Sinopharm provided 2,000 doses to Laos. The vaccine was used on an emergency basis in China in July. It was officially authorized by the Chinese government in December. A Taiwanese nonprofit group says China arrested dozens of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong, partly because Beijing feels international pressure on its human rights record is easing.
I want the international community, especially the Democratic Bloc, to act in unity to counter China.
A senior member of the group, Chang Mingyang, held a news conference in Taipei on Friday. The group is helping people who want to move from Hong Kong to Taiwan. Chang cited the transition of power in the United States and broad agreement on a trade deal with the European Union as the reasons Beijing considers pressure is easing. Prominent Hong Kong activist Nathan Law attended the conference online from Britain, where he's now based. He's said to be wanted by Hong Kong police for allegedly breaching the territory's national security law.
We Hong Kongers are in darkness and repression. We have lost hope for the future and feel powerless.
Most of the 53 who were arrested on Wednesday have been released, but 2 other activists were arrested on Thursday. Tokyo is set to host the Olympic and Paralympic Games this summer, postponed from last year. The last time the city hosted the event in 1964, the Olympic flame was carried across Asia, including Taiwan. University students proudly represented the island in the only Olympic torch relay it has ever seen. NHK World's Patricia Liu reports.
Han Ji-sui was one of the torch bearers in Taiwan for the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. A total of 26 carriers and escort runners participated in the event.
She said to say, huh?
The Olympic flame came to the island 19 years after the end of Japanese rule. Taiwan was then ruled by the Nationalist Party, which retreated to the island after losing to the Communist Party in the Chinese Civil War. The torch relay was a good chance to highlight Taiwan's presence. Athletes from universities across the island were chosen to participate. They headed to the event after training hard.
我们参与者这个都义有容焉了你这个画面要到世界各国去播放你不能丢中华民国的人啊。
The Olympic flame arrived from Hong Kong in September 1964, 1 day behind schedule due to a typhoon. Han says a huge crowd lined the street and set up firecrackers to welcome the flame.
人山人海，我要注意我的姿势好好的跑要这个很自然的
Han says at the time, the torch relay was the biggest international event Taiwan had hosted. He believes it is also the last time the Olympic flame will ever go through the island due to the current geopolitics. Since the 1970s, many countries have normalized diplomatic relations with China while severing diplomatic ties with Taiwan. Today, only 15 nations recognize the island as a country. And when its athletes go to Olympics now, they compete under the ambiguous banner of Chinese Taipei. For Han, it makes him cherish the memory of the 1964 relay all the more. He still has the uniform he wore for the event. Throughout the flame's journey across Asia, only Taiwan put its flag on the runners' shirts.
我觉得这是我人生当中非常荣耀的一件事情。不管我多么老每逢提起来这件事，我就很兴奋很兴奋。
Han now looks forward to seeing the torchbearers at the Tokyo Olympic Games. He hopes it will be as meaningful for them as it was all those years ago for him and Taiwan. Patricia Liu, NHK World, Taipei.
Snow will continue for the holiday weekend in parts of Japan. Our meteorologist Jonathan Oh has a look at the forecast.
Hello, looks like we're going to be dealing with more snow across Japan as we go throughout the week. And I want you to look closely right along the coastal areas of the Sea of Japan here. Look how the clouds kind of roll through. Yeah, that's a telltale sign of that sea effect snow pattern. Look at that nice little spin from that low pressure system up toward the north.